A luxury hospital turns into a crime scene when a powerful CEO's mistress secretly poses as a nurse and cuts off his pregnant wife's oxygen during labor. The husband watches in silence, believing his money can erase what he's done. But what he doesn't know is that the woman he tried to destroy is the daughter of a billionaire who owns the very hospital he tried to control. What follows is a war of truth and vengeance, where power means nothing against justice. And trust me, when her father walks through those doors, every secret, every lie, and every drop of cruelty will be exposed. Stay with me until the end because you won't believe how this story ends. Tell us what time you're watching and where you're tuning in from, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. The sound of beeping monitors filled the air, steady at first, then uneasy. Fluorescent lights flickered above, casting a cold glow across the delivery room. Nurses moved in rhythm, preparing instruments, checking oxygen, adjusting sheets. It should have been a moment of life, hope, and anticipation, but something felt wrong. The woman on the bed, Elena Carter, was breathing fast. Sweat covered her forehead, her eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. Every contraction felt like fire ripping through her body. She whispered weakly, "Please, where's my husband?" The nurse standing beside her didn't answer. She was tall, slender, with glossy brown hair tied into a perfect bun, her makeup untouched despite the chaos around her. A badge hung from her coat, but no one noticed that the name printed on it didn't belong to her. This woman was Ava Monroe, not a nurse, not part of the medical team, but the CEO's mistress, who had found a way into the hospital using power and lies. Ava leaned close, her breath cold against Elena's ear. "Your husband won't be long," she said softly, almost sweetly. "He's right outside waiting for this to be over." Elena managed a faint smile, thinking it was a kind reassurance. But Ava's lips curved into a cruel grin that never reached her eyes. She reached for the oxygen mask, adjusted it with gentle precision, then without hesitation pulled the tube free from the tank. The hissing sound stopped. The silence was instant and terrifying. At first, no one noticed. One nurse was checking the baby's heart rate. Another was writing notes. The doctor turned to grab gloves from a counter, but then Elena's breathing changed. Her chest lifted sharply. Her eyes fluttered. The heart monitor began to speed up, the beeping turning erratic. Elena gasped for air, clutching at the mask. I can't breathe." The nurse near the monitor spun around. "What's happening?" "Her oxygen." But Ava moved fast, pretending to help, covering the line with her hand. "It's just a contraction," she said calmly. "She's panicking." "It happens." Her voice was low, confident, perfectly measured. She had rehearsed it. The doctor looked up. "Get her more oxygen." Ava turned her head slightly. Her eyes glimmered. She leaned down again, her voice almost a whisper meant only for Elena. "You think you deserve to bring his child into this world? You ruined his life. You don't deserve a happy ending." Elena's vision blurred. Her hands trembled as she reached for the tube, but Ava held it out of reach. The baby's monitor beeped faster, the sound merging with the rising panic in the room, her heart rates dropping. The doctor shouted, "Check the oxygen line." A young nurse grabbed the tank and froze. The line wasn't connected. Her face went pale. "Doctor, someone cut the oxygen." The room erupted. Two nurses rushed to reconnect the tube. Another began pressing the emergency button. Alarms filled the hallway, but through the noise, Ava stepped back, expression unreadable. She smoothed her hair and folded her arms as if she were just another bystander watching chaos unfold. Elena coughed violently as fresh air finally reached her lungs. Her body shook from shock and pain. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "My baby," she cried, her voice weak. "Please help my baby." The doctor barked orders, working quickly. The nurses tried to calm her down, attaching new monitors, stabilizing her pulse. In the corner, Ava watched. Her lips tightened when she saw life returning to Elena's face. A flash of anger crossed her eyes, sharp and poisonous. The door swung open. A man entered. Daniel Carter, Elena's husband, the CEO. His suit jacket was still on, his tie slightly loosened. He looked annoyed, not concerned. "What's going on here?" he demanded. The doctor turned to him, furious. "Your wife's oxygen was cut off. She could have died. Who allowed that woman in here?" He glanced at Ava, and for a brief second, something unspoken passed between them. Then his tone turned cold. "There must have been a mistake. She's here to support my wife." The doctor's jaw clenched. "She's not on staff." "No?" Elena tried to speak, her voice breaking. "Daniel, she She pulled it out. Ava interrupted quickly. She's delirious. It's the medication talking. Daniel didn't even look at his wife. He stepped closer to Ava and whispered something only she could hear. She smirked, tilting her head slightly in acknowledgement. The nurse holding the monitor gasped quietly as she noticed the camera in the corner of the ceiling, its red light blinking steadily. It had recorded everything. Elena's body tensed again. The pain came back, sharper now, but her mind was no longer on the contractions. She saw the truth in her husband's eyes, in his silence, in his alliance with the woman who had almost killed her. Her heart broke, not just from betrayal, but from realization. The beeping grew steady again, but the room felt colder. The nurse whispered, "She's stabilizing." The doctor exhaled in relief, but no one spoke. The tension hung heavy in the air. Ava adjusted her coat, preparing to leave. Daniel followed her with his eyes, lips pressed into a thin line. Elena lay still, a single tear tracing down her face. In the reflection of the metal monitor, she saw the blinking red light. The camera had not missed a second, and for the first time since it all began, something inside her stopped trembling. She whispered softly so no one else could hear, "Let it record everything." The scene froze, the sound of her breathing mixing with the soft hiss of restored oxygen. A voiceover would later say, "Slow and steady." 27 minutes earlier, she still believed love could save her. The chaos didn't end when the oxygen returned. It only changed shape. The alarms faded, replaced by whispers, glances, and a quiet so sharp it could cut through bone. The delivery room, once bright with purpose, now felt like a courtroom. Everyone inside knew something terrible had happened, but no one dared to say it out loud. The doctor's hands were still trembling. He adjusted the monitors again, pretending to focus on the numbers. One of the nurses wiped her forehead and glanced at the door as if expecting security to arrive. The younger nurse who had discovered the unplugged oxygen line stood frozen, her eyes wide with disbelief. Elena lay still, her breathing uneven. Every inhale scraped her throat like sandpaper. She could feel the pain in her chest, not from the contractions but from betrayal. Her gaze moved across the room, searching for her husband. Daniel stood near the sink, his phone in hand, typing a message. He didn't look at her. The nurse finally spoke. "Sir, we need to report this. Someone tampered with—" Daniel raised his hand. "That won't be necessary." His voice was calm, almost casual. "The situation is under control." The nurse hesitated, frowning. "With all due respect, sir, this is serious." "The oxygen." He turned toward her slowly. The weight of his gaze silenced her mid-sentence. His expression carried the kind of authority that made people back down. "You're overreacting. The tube probably slipped. It happens all the time." The room went quiet again. Only the faint rhythm of the heart monitor broke the stillness. Beep, beep, beep. The doctor exchanged a look with the nurses, but said nothing. It was easier that way. He had seen powerful men before. Men whose names were printed on donation plaques in hospital corridors. Men who could destroy careers with a phone call. Daniel slipped his phone back into his pocket and walked closer to the bed. His shoes clicked softly against the tile. He stared down at Elena without emotion, as if she were an employee who had disappointed him. "You should focus on your breathing," he said coldly. "You're making a scene." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "A scene? I almost died, Daniel. Our baby." He cut her off. "Nothing happened. Stop exaggerating." She looked at him, truly seeing him for the first time. The man who once promised her safety and love now looked like a stranger wearing a familiar face. She reached out, trying to touch his arm, but he stepped back as if her touch disgusted him. Behind him, Ava leaned casually against the wall. Her nurse disguise was gone now. She had taken off the coat, revealing a fitted black dress underneath. The look on her face was smug, confident, almost victorious. She met Elena's gaze and tilted her head slightly. A silent warning. "Say nothing." The doctor cleared his throat. "We should continue the delivery. Mrs. Carter, your vitals are stable. We need to keep your stress level low." Elena nodded weakly, though her mind was far from calm. The pain from the contractions returned, and she gripped the rails of the bed, biting back a cry. The nurse who had been silenced earlier took a step closer, her voice trembling. "Doctor, should we call for hospital security?" Daniel's tone turned sharp. "No one is calling anyone. You will all keep your mouth shut about this." He looked around the room, his voice steady but icy. "Do you understand? I don't want rumors. I don't want drama. This hospital runs on donations, mine included. Ava smiled faintly. The power in his words fed her like fuel. The doctor forced a professional smile, the kind that hid fear. Of course, Mr. Carter, let's keep things calm. The nurses nodded, some reluctantly, others out of self-preservation. One of them whispered under her breath, God help her. Elena caught that whisper. It gave her a strange sense of comfort, a reminder that not everyone in the room was heartless. She closed her eyes and tried to breathe through the pain, but her thoughts kept circling back to what had just happened. The tube, the cold hand, the whisper, you don't deserve a happy ending. Every word echoed inside her mind. Ava picked up a clipboard from a nearby counter and pretended to read through it. Though her eyes flicked constantly toward Elena, she wanted her to break. She wanted tears, panic, weakness, but instead Elena grew silent. The pain was still there, but something inside her had shifted. Daniel's phone buzzed again. He turned away to answer it. Yes, keep the press release short. The board meeting is at 2, he said quietly into the receiver. And send flowers to the house. White roses. Oh, he ended the call and slipped the phone back into his jacket. You'll be fine, he said flatly. Just listen to the doctor. Ava walked closer, her heels clicking against the floor. She'll be fine, she echoed mockingly. We'll make sure of it. The doctor looked between them, confused by the coldness in their voices, but he stayed quiet. He had learned long ago that silence was safer. A small sound drew everyone's attention. The older nurse, the one who had first tried to speak up, was standing by the corner where the security camera hung. She was holding a small device in her hand, a secondary monitor. The red recording light blinked steadily. She turned it slightly toward the doctor and whispered, It's all been recorded. Ava's smile faded. For the first time, uncertainty crossed her face. Daniel's jaw tightened. What did you say? The nurse looked down quickly, pretending she hadn't spoken, but it was too late. Elena had heard her. The faintest spark of hope flickered in her chest. Daniel glared at the nurse, then at the doctor. Delete the footage. The doctor hesitated. That's not how it works. The recordings are automatic. They're stored in the central server. Ava's voice turned sharp, then shut it down. I don't care how. The room was tense again, suffocating. The young nurse by the window looked like she might cry. She whispered to the older one, Should we call the chief? The older nurse shook her head slightly, a silent message. Not yet. Elena's contractions came faster. The doctor rushed back to her side, guiding her through breathing exercises, doing what he could to keep her stable. But even through the pain, her thoughts burned clear. Now she had seen the blinking light. She knew the truth was safe somewhere, sealed in a file waiting to be opened. The oxygen mask hissed softly. Her breath steadied. Outside the room, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Heavy, deliberate, authoritative. Someone important was coming, though no one inside knew it yet. Back inside, Daniel finally broke the silence. You will all forget what happened here, he said quietly, almost whispering. Because if this gets out, every one of you will regret it. The doctor didn't respond. He just looked at him and then at Elena, and in that moment he made a choice. He reached up, adjusted the monitor, and made sure the small camera indicator stayed on. No one spoke again. The machines hummed softly. Ava turned away, her confidence cracking slightly at the edges. Elena closed her eyes, one hand resting over her belly. She whispered to her unborn child, her voice faint but steady. Hold on, baby. We're not done yet. The camera light blinked once more, bright and unblinking, as if it understood what it had just witnessed and promised to remember.